Hi, I'm Greg Scott, and we're about to cram a whole lot of information into a little bit of time. So buckle up and let's get started. One of the things about cybersecurity presentations is that there's always way too much information to cover in the amount of time allotted, and that's why we have to fly through it. This was supposed to be a presentation about 5 tips to guard against ransomware or to defend against ransomware. I need 7 tactical tips, and I need a 6-word strategic tip, and 2 great books at the end. So here they are in a nutshell. Email hygiene, patching, trust, passwords and passphrase management, backups, tech tools, awareness, and then I'm going to summarize that all up in a 6-word rhyme that'll burn into your brain, and I'm going to tell you about 2 great books. Let's go. Email hygiene is first. Email, everybody knows this, email is the #1 attack vector. That still, to this day, phishing scams are all over the place. Probably the best phishing scam story is when John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager in 2016, a former White House chief of staff, John Podesta fell for the oldest trick in the book. He got an email that claimed to come from Google, and it wasn't from Google, it was from Russians, and they said his Gmail password was compromised. Click here to make everything all better. That was one link in a chain of events that blasted the embarrassing Democratic emails all over WikiLeaks, and that might have affected the U.S. national election. Con games are alive and well, and they live today on the internet. Just because you see it on the internet doesn't mean it ain't true. Here's one that hit me one time. Hi, your account is hacked. Renew your password. If you don't do all these things, I'm gonna tell everybody all your intimate secrets. Sometimes con jobs are alive and well, and none of us are immune to them. So, if it's too good to be true, don't believe it. And watch out for lies. They fly over the internet really fast. Patching is another big deal. Our second thing. Keep your systems up to date. I had systems. It's a hassle to do patching. It just is. But it's a worse hassle to not do patching because vendors do updates to guard against known security vulnerabilities. It's an arms race. If you don't do your part, your devices are vulnerable, and that's one good way that bad guys get in. And in fact, 150 million of us found out about that the hard way during the Equifax data breach when an Apache Struts server out there somebody forgot to patch. Bad guys attacked us, and now 150 million of us have our private information all over the world. Trust is a big one. We're going to take some time on this one because it's important. I have a whole seminar devoted to trust. It's like 18 minutes long, and there's a link to it down on the slide. Here's the thing about trust. Everything depends on trust. If I want to browse a website, how do I know that website is good? Forget about technology for a minute. Alice wants to visit Bob's bank. Alice doesn't know that Bob really is Bob, but everybody trusts Carlene. So Alice asks Carlene, "Hey, is Bob okay?" And Carlene says, "Yes, Bob is okay." So now Alice can trust Bob. That's fundamentally the way trust works. Carlene has a special role called a certificate authority. Carlene issues a certificate to Bob that says Bob really is Bob. So when I go to talk to Bob, Bob gives me a certificate. Now I know Bob is cool because Carlene signed it. That's the elementary how trust works. There's a few twists on that. One twist is supply chain attacks. You have to somebody attacks a vendor that you trust, pollutes that software, and that hurts you. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And there's another element of trust called the Zero Trust Architecture, ZTA. The Zero Trust Architecture is it's new, and it's a National Institute of Standards. It's a standard. It's an emerging standard, and it has 6 tenets, all about segmenting your network and not trusting anybody. It's a great architecture, but it's not going to be the solution to the whole world. Trust is a biggie. Now, here was a supply chain attack from 2020, about a year and a half old is when we found out about it, when somebody polluted a software package called SolarWinds. The biggest organizations in the world use SolarWinds to help manage their network. SolarWinds has admin access into everything. Somebody screwed up the SolarWinds software, SolarWinds was installed all over everywhere, and that screwed up, and that compromised a whole bunch of networks and created a whole bunch of ransomware problems. What's a supply chain attack? Forget technology for a minute. Think about it. Here's a spy movie. Everybody's sitting around, the good guys are sitting around a table, and they're trying to decide how to save the world, and they're plotting their strategy. The problem is the bad guys are listening. The bad guys are listening in. The bad guys know everything the good guys are doing because they have the room bugged. Great, wonderful. But if you're a bad guy, how would you bug every room for every good guy everywhere? How would that happen? That's a supply chain attack. Not attacking one target, attacking every target by attacking somebody that every target uses. So if I'm a bad guy, how do I bug every room where every good guy everywhere might want to listen in? Well, the answer is creative. Take over the light bulb factory. Because everybody has light bulbs. So you have the light bulb factory, you can plant your bugs in the light bulbs that everybody uses, and now you can listen in on every room in the whole world. That's a supply chain attack. There will never be a technology defense against supply chain attacks. Sooner or later, somehow, some way, everybody has to trust somebody. Just fundamental. Zero trust architecture or not. The only defense, and this is I'm going to pound on this in a minute, but the only defense is make suppliers earn your trust, and they earn trust by embracing open. And we're gonna do more on that in just a minute. But first, there's a couple more tactical tips I want to talk about. Passwords and passphrase management. Password management is a biggie. You've all heard this before. Don't share your passwords. Don't use the same password all over the place. Don't tell anybody else your password. We all know that stuff, but we do it anyway. One of the attack against Colonial Pipeline borrowed a password, we think, from maybe a compromised social media account or something like that. They used the same VPN password into Colonial Pipeline, and that shut off gas deliveries for the whole eastern U.S. for a long time. It screwed up the economy for a while. I'm a fan of passphrases. Conventional wisdom says use a password with complex characters and special characters in upper and lower case. Those kinds of complex passwords are good because they're hard to guess. They're bad because they're hard to remember. I like passphrases. Good passphrases beat good passwords. Passphrases are good because they're also hard to guess, and they're good because they're easy to remember, and that might take your dependency. You might not have to depend on some password management thing, which is a super juicy target. So there's passwords. Ransomware. There is two forms of ransomware. One form is somebody scrambles all your files and then wants you to pay a ransom to get it back. Another form is somebody copies all your files and wants you to pay money so they don't share your secret information around the world. If somebody copies all your files, there's nothing you can do about it. They've got a copy. But the scrambled file defense is backups. That's the only reactive defense. If somebody gets inside your network and scrambles all your files, you've got no other choice than to recover from backups. So hopefully you have good backups. Now, the thing about good backups is you got to make sure that the system you're backing up has no way to access its backups, which means the backups need to pull stuff away instead of you pushing stuff to the backups. Burn this into your brain. For ransomware, if a computer can find it, then malicious software inside that computer can also find it, which means it doesn't matter if you back up to the clouds or to a USB stick or an external hard drive or a tape. If your system can find it, then malicious software inside your system can also find it. So make sure nobody can find your backups after you've copied them. Tech tools are a biggie. Tech tools are things like antivirus subscriptions, inbound spam filtering, outbound web filtering, that sort of thing. Tech tools are good because technology never gets tired, it never gets careless, it just does what you tell it to do. But technology has a weakness, it's driven by algorithms. That's why there's no substitute, and there never will be any substitute for good old-fashioned human awareness. All right, we've flown through six tactical tips. Here's where it's going to come together. I don't have time for this. Just tell me what I need to know in 25 words or less, cuz you're not going to absorb all the stuff I've just told you unless you play this video over and over and over again. But this you can absorb. If you don't remember anything else from the first pass through this video, remember this really stupid 6-word rhyme: care and share to be prepared. Repeat it right now with me. Care and share to be prepared. Everything flows from that. All the tactical tips flow from that. And there's a whole bunch more tactical tips we don't have time to go over today. Care and share to be prepared. Care. Care enough about your own information technology to actually invest in protecting it instead of just talking about investing in protecting it. Do more than lip service. Or maybe you can stand up and testify in front of Congress and you can tell the whole world about how you take security seriously after somebody just plundered you. Trust me, you don't want to be in that position. A lot of CEOs have lost their jobs from things like that, and a lot of good people have been hurt. Sharing is another big deal. Sharing to its logical extreme. Tell the world everything you do about security and demand everyone else, all the other good guys in the world, tell you what they do about security. And you're probably going to say, "Greg, you're out of your mind. You're nuts. What do you mean? What do you mean open that all up?" Well, here's the thing. This argument is almost 170 years old. It goes back to 1852 in Alfred Charles Hobbs in a book he wrote about how mechanical locks work. And yet that's 1852. That's not a verbal typo. And what Hobbs said in today's language is, bad guys already know how to penetrate us. By writing this book, by opening up, by sharing how mechanical locks work with the public, I'm leveling the playing field. Now the public knows what bad guys already know. Here's the thing. Bad guys spend all day long probing good guys, and they spend all night long collaborating with each other to make tomorrow's probes better. Good guys, we isolate ourselves behind this veil of secrecy because we don't want anybody to find out what we do. But bad guys already know what we do. That's why ransomware is a global pandemic these days. Which do you prefer, by the way? Would you rather be embarrassed in a peer review of all your security procedures when they uncover a bunch of holes? Or would you rather somebody penetrate you for real and expose information about every one of your customers? I know which one I like. By the way, I practice what I preach. Here's a link to an embarrassing situation I had. Okay, 2 great books, Bullseye Breach and Virus Bomb. Back in 2014, I got tired of people's eyes glazing over when I tried to tell them about cybersecurity concepts, and so I decided I would try to use fiction to present truth better than the news. In Bullseye Breach, overseas attackers attack a retailer named Bullseye Stores, and they steal 40 million customer credit card numbers, and they try to make some money that way. In Virus Bomb, overseas attackers take it a step further, and they attack an entire industry to gather a lot of information, and they use that information to try to launch a physical attack against us. Millions of people could die if we're not careful. Enjoy the fiction. Try these books, you won't be able to put it down. Enjoy the fiction and use the information. You'll be glad that you did. Resistance is not futile. The Borg, if you're a Star Trek fan, the Borg would have you believe that there's nothing you can do against these attackers. It's just inevitable that they're going to plunder you. But it's not inevitable. Resistance is not futile. We can win against these bad guys if we use some of the principles I gave you here and we embrace open and get serious about it. I want to do one more slide, and this is how to contact me. You can email me at gregscott@infosupport.com or gregscott@dgregscott.com. Either one of those emails goes to the same place. And there's my website, www.dgregscott.com. And you can find me on Twitter at dgregscott or LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. And now, let's go back to here, right there, and I'm going to stop recording now before I wear out my welcome. Thanks for putting up with me.